The thing about living in the suburbs is nobody tells you how quickly peace can turn into war. 1 minute, you're standing in your backyard with a fresh mug of coffee, admiring the sunshine hitting the roof of your brand new storage shed. And the next, you're staring at a military-grade padlock on the door, realizing someone just declared war on your weekend plans. Now, I'm not a violent guy. I pay my bills, I rake my leaves, I wave at the neighbors. All I wanted was to finally build something I'd been dreaming about for years. Not just a barbecue pit, no. This was the Emberhold. My own culinary cathedral of smoke and flame, right there behind the house. And inside that shed, everything I needed to make it happen. Thousands of dollars of tools, custom bricks, a trailer-sized smoker I'd waited 6 months for. All of it. Locked behind a door I own with a lock I most definitely did not put there. There was a note too. Laminated, of course. HOA Form 7.4A. Signed by Clarice Montgomery, president of the Lakeview HOA. It said, unapproved construction materials. Unit has been temporarily secured pending audit. I stared at that phrase temporarily secured until the coffee in my hand went cold. Where I come from, that's called trespassing. And padlocking someone's stuff. That's how bar fights start. My wife, Emily, stepped onto the patio, saw the look on my face, and said, "Did she really?" I just nodded. See, this wasn't the first time Clarice had flexed her clipboard of doom. We moved into Lakeview Ridge 6 months ago, sold on promises of community gardens and friendly sidewalks. Instead, what we got was a petty little empire run by a woman with a walkie-talkie, a color-coded spreadsheet, and a deep personal hatred for anything that looked like personality. The kind of person who calls the cops because your Halloween pumpkins are too realistic. First month we were here, she fined us $30 because our recycling bin was visible from the street for exactly 6 minutes. She had photos, printed, stapled, delivered by hand. It was impressive in a terrifying kind of way. But this was different. This was sabotage. Let me back up. When we first bought the place, I applied for construction approval for the Emberhold complete with diagrams, renderings, a full materials list, even a simulated smoke drift model from NOAA. I spent 40 hours on that packet, and it was rejected. Not because it broke code. No, it was because the bricks I planned to use were Adobe Sunset instead of Tuscan taupe. And the chimney? A whole 7 inches too tall. Apparently, that posed a threat to the aesthetic unity of the community. But I'm not one to back down quietly. So I revised the plan. Submitted a decorative patio slab application for a basic 10 by 5 concrete foundation. Didn't mention barbecue. Didn't mention smoke. It was 100% compliant and approved without question. So I waited. Then I ordered everything. The smoker, the grill, the bricks, the tools. And I packed them all neatly inside the shed. It was a Trojan horse sitting right in plain sight. Everything was ready. All I needed now was to pour the concrete, and the Emberhold would rise. Then came the lock. I called the HOA line straight to voicemail. I tried the emergency number, also her personal line. Nothing. My contractor, Pete, was due in 45 minutes. The concrete truck was already on its way. Non-refundable. That's when I knew I had a choice. Either accept that Clarice had won or do something less legal. First, I called a locksmith. A guy named Tyler showed up in a van covered in flames and lightning bolts. He looked at the lock, looked at the HOA notice still taped to the shed, and literally took a step back. Dude, that's an Ablo Protect 2. That's like military grade. I'm not touching that. Also HOA. No way. That's a nightmare. Sorry, man. He charged me $95 for the visit and sped off like I was radioactive. I just stood there. My shed was locked. My tools were hostage. The concrete truck was probably 3 blocks away. And then, I had a terrible, beautiful idea. I called Eli, my best friend from college. Eli is a firefighter. A real one. Runs into burning buildings for fun. He answers the phone like this. Eli's house of rescue panic. We peel. I said, I need the jaws. He paused. You serious? I'm deadly serious. Is this about HOA stuff again? Eli, it's worse than Halloween pumpkins. It's war. 15 minutes later, a bright red fire department pickup truck pulled up outside my house, tires screeching like a NASCAR pit stop. Eli stepped out like an Avenger with a coffee in one hand and the jaws of life slung across his shoulder. This was a man born for chaos. He didn't ask questions. He just looked at the shed, spat into the grass, and said, "Where's the patient?" Now, if you've never seen the jaws of life up close, let me tell you it's not subtle. It's a giant hydraulic clamp used to rip car doors off after crashes. And now it was sitting 5 feet away from Clarice's rose bushes. Neighbors peeked through curtains. One guy stopped mid-jog. Pete, my contractor, showed up mid-scene and just whispered, "Holy crap." Eli fired up the pump, and the whine of hydraulics pierced the quiet like a chainsaw through butter. The lock resisted for maybe 4 seconds. Then it popped, exploded, really. A piece of shrapnel flew across the yard and pinged off a fence. The rest dropped to the grass like a gutted beetle. Silence. I walked up, pulled the hasp off the door, and opened my shed. The sunlight caught the chrome of my smoker just right. I swear. It glowed. I'd won. And right across the street, Clarice stood frozen on her porch, cordless phone in hand, her face somewhere between shock and fury. Then came the sirens. 2 police cruisers pulled up, lights spinning. Clarice, now fully in performance mode, rushed out, waving her arms like she was flagging down a medevac. "He destroyed HOA property. With a weapon," she shrieked. The younger officer, fresh face, nervous energy, looked at me like I was about to bite him. The older one, Sergeant Lopez, looked like a guy who had seen it all: bad traffic stops, domestic disputes, and probably more HOA complaints than any sane person should endure. "Ma'am," he said slowly, "is this his shed?" "Yes, but..." "His property?" "Well, yes, technically, but..." "And you put a lock on it?" "I had to. The bylaw clearly states..." "Ma'am," he interrupted, now clearly tired, "you can't go locking up other people's buildings. I don't care what your bylaw says. That's a civil matter. If you didn't like what he stored in there, you file a complaint. You don't seize it like it's Fort Knox." She sputtered. Lopez turned to me. "You removed the lock?" "Yes, sir." "Was it yours?" "Nope." "Anyone get hurt?" "Nope." He nodded. "Looks like we're done here." Clarice tried again some babble about HOA liability, but Lopez just tipped his hat and walked back to the cruiser. As they drove off, I caught him laughing. Like, really laughing. Shoulders shaking, hat tilted kind of laughing. The rest? History. We poured the concrete, built the ember hold, used the forbidden bricks, made the chimney 12 inches too tall. And when it was done, I threw a block party for the entire neighborhood. Sent invitations. Even hand-delivered one to Clarice. She didn't come, but the rest of the neighborhood did. We had ribs, brisket, wood-fired pizza, and people talked. They told stories. About fines, threats, gardening violations, paint shades. Turns out, Clarice had built her little empire on fear and laminated notices. But after what happened in my backyard, folks weren't scared anymore. At the next HOA meeting held in a neutral community center, not her lavender-scented garage, motion was introduced to hold a special election. It passed unanimously. Clarice was out. We elected Kevin. Kevin has a beard, 2 kids, and a job at the post office. His platform? Can we just not be crazy? The rules were rewritten, reduced to 2 pages of common sense. My ember hold was officially approved, retroactively. And Clarice? Well, she still lives there. Still walks her little nervous dog. Last week, she passed my house. Didn't say a word. But she looked up at me, standing by the smoker, and gave a small nod. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't forgiveness. It was something else. Respect. I nodded back, then flipped a burger. You know, the suburbs aren't always peaceful. Sometimes, you've got to get loud just to make them quiet again. But hey, now I've got the best barbecue in Lakeview Ridge, a neighborhood that finally stopped fearing its HOA, and a shattered lock mounted above my smoker like a trophy. So tell me, was I right to break it open? Or did I go too far? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Should HOA presidents be allowed to lock your shed? Ever had a suburban showdown of your own? And hey, if you need a guy with a truck and the jaws of life, I might know someone.